Hey, Lee.
Hey, Jen.
What are you listening to this week? Welcome to What Are You Listening To? The weekly podcast created to foster community through music by sharing the stories behind the songs that soundtrack our lives. Some of the songs are old, some new, all good. I'm Jenn Tully, and this week I'm joined by Lee Michael. Lee made his way to Austin after finishing a master's program at University of Connecticut. He's a microbiologist with a bent towards studying mushrooms and a visual artist who specializes in mask making. And quite honestly, one of the most interesting people I've ever met. We'll learn more about Lee and get an update on his creative endeavors in between our song picks. Also, did you know that now on Spotify, you can listen to the show with the songs we discuss incorporated? Just search for What Are You Listening To with Music. If you're not listening on Spotify, be sure to give the playlist a listen and then tune into our conversation. With that, let's get started. Lee, what are you listening to this week?
Hey, Jen. So I have been listening to recently a lot of music that's very different from music that I used to listen to. And I've just kind of been leaning into that. So I brought two songs in that are kind of encapsulating a little bit of like the world and the region that I'm pulling from these days.
Okay, so tell me about your first song.
First song is called Mask on Mask, and it's by Shintaro Sakamoto. This is a song that reached out to me because I was making a mask while I heard it for the first time, and I was like, what is this song? And it was like Mask on Mask, and I was like, oh my God, and I just loved it. Totally went down a rabbit hole for Shintaro Sakamoto and kind of where he was coming from, and just found out like, oh cool, here's like a complete genius that's been making awesome music for like longer than I've been alive. It's just awesome.
Totally. Could not agree more. I have been alive as long as he's been making music, but enjoyed it so much. Like, it's so freaking groovy from like the first notes. At first I was like, is he dropping me some like 70s porn soundtrack music? Like, what's happening here? And then you get another surprise because the song's entirely in Japanese. And then the surprises just keep coming. I feel like I could listen to this song 100 times. I probably have, honestly. And I hear something different every single time. Do you experience it that way? Like, it just feels like a new song every time I listen.
Yeah, that's like something that really grabbed me about it, and like thematically it works for me. I kind of love tying together like my art, my life, my feelings with the art that I'm interacting with. That's just kind of like coming in off of the breeze like this, you know? And like mask making is such an iterative process where you really have to cast and recast and add layers and layers. And like hearing this song, it reminds me a lot of sort of like early like Talking Heads, and like some of their recording patterns were really just like, let's lay down one track at a time, like 4 or 5 minutes of a groove where like there were no chord changes at all, or maybe one chord change. And then like they would just add layer after layer after layer onto it and then figure out how to make the song shift in its space, you know? Hearing this song, like, because I think like he's totally cueing in and like recording the same way, I would like to say, that like it does that, where like it has this emergent quality to it, where the more you listen to it, you start hearing like, oh my God, that's been in there the entire time. I just like didn't hear it before. Or like I'm in a different room and now it sounds different, you know? It's just like, It's so cool.
I felt the same exact way, like depending on if I was listening in the car or at home or on headphones, like I felt like I could experience the song in an entirely new way every time. And as you mentioned, you know, Shintaro Sakamoto's a Japanese musician, singer, songwriter, producer. He's prolific. You know, he was the founding member and the front man of an underground Japanese psychedelic rock band called Yura Yura Taikoku. I'm not sure if I'm saying it right, but I am telling you, like, it's well worth diving down that rabbit hole as well. They had like 21 albums from 1989 to 2010, and you can just like pick any one of them. That's what I did, just going through Spotify. And you and I spoke about this. I ended up landing on one that I loved. It was from 1998 called 3 by 3 by 3. That's just so good and so rich. There's so much there. It could have been like, when I was listening, I'm like, it could have been Spoon. It could have been Franz Ferdinand, right? Like, I loved that I couldn't pinpoint like what year this came out, where it was from. I mean, other than they're singing in Japanese, you sort of can't get around that. But I'm a big lyrics person. I cannot find translation for this song anywhere, and I don't care. I'm
Yeah.
so happy. I love it. And it did strike me knowing that you're a mask maker. Like, and we've had some kind of cool conversations about like the masks you make versus the masks you wear every day in real life. And I just like in my head had this whole story that that's what this song was about, right? It's about that conversation you and I had, I think the first time we met, and I learned you were a mask maker, like about, I've always thought about that, like what an interesting juxtaposition to think about, like physically putting on a mask that comes from you, that's creative, that you wear, and then kind of subconsciously the way we do it every day. So I like to believe that there's some hint or thread of that in this song, but I don't know.
I kind of love that. I like, if I had found this music in a different part of my life, I might have discounted it because it's not in my language.
Yeah.
I love that it found me when it did, and that I was like open to it. And
Yes.
I kind of love that I can't sing along to these songs, although I can kind of hum along to them, or I could pick my own little melody and kind of riff on it. That's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But there's nothing there for me to really be doing in terms of comprehending, what it means. And it
Right.
really, like, it gives me the freedom to kind of just like go with it in my own space. So like, I love that. Like, I haven't found the need to find translations for these, although I love translation as just a process and an art form in and of itself.
Sure.
But like you said, like, I don't know. I'm kind of cool with it. I really
Me too. And I'm usually not.
Yeah.
But I'm really cool with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, tell me about your second pick. We diverge a little here with this one, but I loved it just as much as the first song. So tell me about your second pick.
Yeah, so my second pick is a song called Tokai by Taeko Onuki. And that is off of an album called Sun Shower, which I think was released in like 77 or something.
Yeah.
This song, wow, I don't really know. It was like from the first few bars of the song, when I heard it, I was like, whoa. It was like here I'm just like doing monotonous like mask work, right? And like, it's like, again, I kind of popped out. I was like, what's going on here? And her voice is so different from a lot of the pop music that I grew up around. Her voice is very clear, and it really just kind of comes through as a voice where like it is sometimes the only steady thing through the entire song, where all the jazz is just exploding around it. And like, I have no idea what this song means, what it's supposed to do, but like, I have no question. That's why, like, it feels different from the other song that I gave you. This is another song that's all in Japanese, but that's about all that connects them, as far as I can tell. They
Yes.
enter very different spaces, and this song just totally rocks my world. And like, I can't help but share it with people, really.
I love it. And I'm so glad you did. And I hope that so many people open up to it. And I would say I was a person that was maybe closed off to songs that were in different languages because the lyrics are so relatable to me. That's one of the things I love about music. And I love to dig into those. And I feel the same as you, and that I'm in a place where now I can appreciate sort of this global or world music from all over the place and not need to know what it's saying because I'm feeling it or I'm hearing it, or it's allowing me to engage in some sort of like creative storytelling process, or I'm like making it up in my head as I'm listening. And that's a fun way to experience music. For people that are music lovers, that's what's fun about it, is it keeps growing and changing, and the listening experience is always evolving. And I think that this song, both of these songs actually, but this one in particular, is also a great easy way to do this. It's like a really mellow 70s song. Like it could have just as easily been like Rita Coolidge or the Carpenters, except Japanese, you know? And so it's just soothing. And I felt like this one felt like a warm blanket on a rainy day with a cup of hot tea. You know, it just made me feel comfortable from the first moment I heard it, from the first note. And then her voice comes in, and you're just like, oh, can this song get any better?
Mm-hmm.
And then it does. And then it keeps getting better.
It does. And like, I love that this song, it gives me that same warm feeling. I think I like literally, I was like, what should I listen to? I think it was like Christmas Eve. And I was like, hell yeah, Sun Shower. Like, I don't know why. I just needed that. It fit in so well. It's just cooking and kind of doing my thing. It was so warm. And yet it's so intriguing. Like, the music is incredible. The musicians are like world class.
So good.
The recording quality in and of itself, you know, I show the song to some people and they're like, holy cow, 1977, this sounds incredible. And I just like, I'm totally blown away by that, where here, unbeknownst to me, there's like this entire different world of music that existed. And I mean, how profoundly like privileged am I to live in a part of my life that and just live in a time where I can access that and that I can kind of just share that space like that. I think that is like really incredible. I'm just like, I feel a lot of gratitude being able to find music like this even.
Yes, me too. And coming, you know, I completely echo the gratitude, because I remember a time when you didn't have that. Like the only way I would have ever been able to hear this kind of music is if I knew somebody that went to Japan and brought it back, or caught some crazy like AM channel or something, right? Like it wasn't accessible. So now the fact that we're getting our hands on these artists that are prolific in their home countries, right? She's been recording music since the early 70s. I think 71 was when her first band, the Sugar Babes, came out, and they broke up, I think 3 years later, because it's like what I was reading, it said they were like too mellow, sort of hard rock was kind of the genre of the day in Japan, and they just weren't well received. But then, yes, her solo stuff, the Sun Shower album is fantastic from beginning to end. This song, you know, and throughout the album it pops up, but this song in particular, you get this crazy like funky bass line, and then like these weird keyboards, this like synthesizer. Yeah. It's just crazy instrumentation that I really couldn't, if I didn't read up on these songs, and when I first heard them, I could not accurately tell you from what time period they came. Like I did not know. I would not have guessed that, you know, the Shintaro Sakamoto song was from, you know, the 90s or the 2011, I guess, is when that album came out, How to Live with the Phantom, and then 1977 for the Sun Shower album. I would have guessed entirely wrong on both. And I love that. I love that.
Yeah, it's so shocking, so surprising. Another thing on Tokai, I mean, that song, one of the things that really, really delights me the most is like the backing vocals toward the end, where there's this key change, and like there's just these really, really delicate kind of vocals, like these backers that just kind of hit a couple of notes off of the beat every now and then, and I'm like, this is so cool. Like, where did this go? Where, like, you know, like, and it's just so neat. Also, really, really worth mentioning again, these are both contemporary artists. They're both alive.
Yes.
They both still make music these days, which I think is just like, oh, bonus. Oh my God. Like, go on like social media and you could like try and reach out to them. Like, these are people, you know what I mean? Like,
yes.
I think it's incredible that, yeah, I found them in such a later kind of term in my like musical life, you know, like I've been tumbling through a lot of different music all of my life, really. And for me, like, this is late in the game, you know, and I'm like, wow. And they're still doing it. Like, this is so cool.
How did you stumble upon these artists? Can I ask, were you like listening to something on Spotify and then this got served up to you? Did you seek them out? Did someone share them with you? How did you find these two artists?
Yeah, I kind of go through these periods of like growth and stuff of an expansion where I really try and just like incorporate new art forms, new genres. Okay. And and really just start like doing a lot of this like cross pollination, you know. So this came out from me, I think, through last summer into the fall, really trying to just like find new sounding things that were very different to me. And through a little bit of guidance, I found another band which really owns a large chunk of my heart this day, called Fishman's. So surprised I didn't throw in a song of theirs here, but maybe that's for another time.
I was going to say, when you come back, you'll inevitably be back after serving me these two amazing songs. You're not going to get off with just one episode, Lee. I'll tell you now.
Awesome. But yeah, so kind of just tumbling through the space of Japanese artists in the mid to late 70s, 80s, and like kind of, I guess I was trying to look at like, well, I know like 90s music in my life, but like what was happening elsewhere? You know, like what are these other sounds and what were these other stories that were happening? And then you find out like it's just so cool. There's all this like cross-cultural stuff that you're totally picking up because of the music that was coming out of the West. Totally entered the world. But like, there's just I mean, you run this show because you like talking about this stuff. I love the way that art and artists interact. And like, when you start looking at older art, you could be like, when do you think this was made? You can tell somebody that's like, they've been dead 700 years and it looks like contemporary. It looks like a painting or something like that, right? Like, I think it's incredible. Yeah. Anyways, it just blows me away.
And I love that about both of these songs. Like I said, it's great that you mentioned it because I really could not accurately pinpoint, you know, when or where, time and place they came from if I were just listening to the music. And even if there was some sort of like universal language and we weren't, you know, divided by a language barrier, I would not be able to tell you where in the world it came from or what time period. And I loved that. And I think, you know, we talk a lot too about kind of the serendipity of how songs come together and create this 4-song playlist each week. But we don't share our song picks with each other. Like you and I don't collaborate, or I don't collaborate with any guests when we're building the list. I ask my guests to send me 2 songs, and then I look back and see what I was listening to that week. And that's how it all like comes together. And this one was so cool. And it happens almost every single week. Like it was so cool because I was feeling very nostalgic and digging back into like music I was listening to in the 90s. And then to find, you know, like you said, on the other side of the world, this really cool music is coming out of Japan at the same time. And so I picked my first song, which is actually a song from the 70s, but I rediscovered it. I had heard it when I was younger, but I rediscovered it in the 90s from a fabulous movie, one of my favorites, called Boogie Nights.
Yeah.
And the song is Spill the Wine by Eric Burdon and War. So this song is just a bonkers song to me. From the first time I heard it to now, I'm like, it's just bananas. Like, it's a crazy story song. I'd say 80% of it is spoken. It's not even sung. But it's like this like drug riddled meditation on what fame is like, right? Like that's what it felt like to me. And it's got these crazy lyrics. You know, I did dig back. And this one is one where I think you can't talk about the song without talking about the lyrics. As much as I enjoyed having like autonomy from the lyrics in your picks, it was nice to be freed from that and not worrying about what the song was saying. But in this one, I feel like it would be a mistake to not call out some of the lyrics. But I love the song kind of opens and talks about, I laid there in the sun and felt it caressing my face. As I fell asleep and dreamed, I dreamed I was in a Hollywood movie. And that I was the star of the movie. This really blew my mind. The fact that me, an overfed, long-haired, leaping gnome, should be the star of a Hollywood movie. I mean, could you even make a song like that today? What do you think, Lee?
Is this the first time I ever heard this song?
It is.
Yeah. And so like, I had no expectations. And then like, man, such a cool song. I love spoken word. I love the way that interplays with this like groovy kind of thing that they got going, that they're cooking in the beginning. I love how the lines are delivered, the lyrics that you just read, because it really, once again, it feels like an emergent story where this person's really kind of just like, and then I took a nap.
Yeah.
I had a dream that I was in a movie. And I was like, whoa, this is really cool. Like I just love how like it feels formless, and I love the expansion of that. And then like there's just so much that puzzles me about this. I'll ask you a question about it, but like the fact that like gusto that they generate in the very beginning, where they've got the full band and everything, and they're playing that theme, it dissipates into this dream, and they don't even come back until 2/3 of the way through the song, and then it's just like, what the hell? Like what's going on here? So I wanted to ask you. I'm like, so that like chorus, spill the wine, take that pearl. What does that even mean to you? Like, what's your experience with those words? I like the way that they're delivered and everything. I was like, what's happening here?
Yeah, I think that you know what, I don't know. To me, it's just like, it's like I said, this crazy, like drug riddled meditation on fame. That's what the song's always been about to me. I don't know if that's what it's for or that's what it means, but it really came into heavy rotation for me when I was living in Los Angeles and I was working in the entertainment industry. And so it resonated in that way, And so I like spill the wine. I don't know if it's just like it just like it screams party to me. Like you're at this crazy random party, and that happens a lot in California, and especially back then in my experience, like you could just be at this place and all of a sudden a celebrity walks in and it changes the whole vibe of the party, or a musician or somebody, and it just sort of the randomness of places you could find yourself in, and the opportunity that Los Angeles sort of presented for that. And then I think it's also because it's in a great scene in Boogie Nights, which I referenced, one of my favorite movies. It's a great soundtrack, and I love that. Like nothing is more magical for me. We've talked a lot about on this episode about sort of art, like crossing over and merging. And when a perfect song puts a bow on a scene beautifully, like nothing makes me happier, And that's how this song was in Boogie Nights. Like it's a great scene where they're at the producer's house, who's played by Burt Reynolds, sort of the role that revived his career. And you get to see all of that. You get to see all of these characters at the party as they're walking through and the song is playing in the background. And then, like you said, you have this crazy like flute music, and then they're speaking Spanish in the background. And it's so unique. I can't think of another song that sounds like this to me or tells this kind of story. And there are bits and pieces like Donovan's kind of freaky deaky like this. You get Three Dog Night with Mama Told Me Not to Come, like same kind of sentiment. But these people seem like perfectly happy to be at this crazy party, whereas in Mama Told Me Not to Come, it's sort of like, oh, should have never done this. But this is almost like the flip side of that. Like, no, I'm perfectly happy to be here amidst all this weirdness. Yeah. So I think that's what it means. Like, to me, it was just like an acceptance of like, wow, I'm in this totally crazy place and I'm just going to like dig being here.
Yeah. It like totally feels like that kind of dream logic. And then even just like the feeling of the chorus, like, what that feels like, what it's saying or what it means before you really understand what it is, you know what I mean? I learned that from like loving poetry, is that like there really is no way to like get it the right way. Like you feel something before you understand it. And I think that like with music like this, and also I guess maybe just thematically for everything that we're talking about, I mean, like sometimes you just understand kind of where it's coming from. And I think that's so cool. But also, like you said, I guess in a party setting or something, you really can't be like, nope, I'm not digging this. Like if you don't have the way out, like, then you start getting a little antsy and they can go really bad. But I could totally see it, just like, I'm going to ride this out. I'm just going to keep cool. And we're just going to get to the end of the movie,
Right.
Cinematic. It was so cool.
Yeah, it's a groovy song. And if you're not familiar with it, or you've not listened to it, or it's been a minute, or you've not like sat down and really like gotten into it, I encourage it. And there's, it's off the Eric Burdon Declares War. It's an album from 1970. I think that's the original album that it was on. Like I said, I kind of rediscovered it in the 90s from Boogie Nights, but that whole album is great too. The Eric Burdon and War stuff really is, it's funky 70s, and it really kind of delivers uniqueness all the way through. So highly recommend. And then I rounded out the playlist with a song that I've had on repeat, and actually an album that I've been listening to a ton from a band that I loved in high school and college, actually. It was when I first discovered these guys. And so this is a song called I Want to Stay Home by Jellyfish. This is off of their album called Belly Button from 1990. And the big hit off of it was a song called The King is Half Undressed. That was kind of the single that was released that everybody glommed onto. And I loved that single, but ended up buying the whole CD back in the day. That's what we did. And just fell in love with almost every track. And this is a track that I've always gone back to. You know, it's really interesting to me in that when we're talking about time and place for music, I think when you say 80s music, and especially to younger folks, they're like, oh, they think of like synth pop. And that was obviously very prominent during the 80s. But you start to see this this transition, you know, mid to late 80s, where you're getting out of that synth pop sound and getting like the vibe starts to shift to like you get some of the Manchester sound. You like coming into jangle pop. We're right on the heels of grunge, you know, like everything's starting to come out. And then you get a song like this or an album like this that really, it's got fast songs that are super poppy. It's got songs that sound jazzy. And then it has just this really beautiful ballad that to me is almost like a love song to independence, right? Like you kind of keep waiting lyrically for him to pull somebody else in. But at the end of the day, he's really singing about how he wants to stay home. You know, if he wants to go out, he can. But he's not like, I want to stay home with you or I want to stay home with this other person. He does reference later on in the song something about my dear. So maybe he's, you know, somewhere writing a letter to someone or something. But he never invokes another person in terms of like, needing another person to be happy, right? Like he can stay home and just really relish in that. And I love that. And again, maybe it's the time and place that I found this song, but I'm curious if this was a band you'd heard of or a song that you knew prior to me sharing it.
Yeah, like again, there's a good chance that I've heard this music before, but like as far as I knew, I was like, Jellyfish, great, sounds good. Like I feel like I totally identified just from their album art, like where they're coming out of, like what, like genre, space, and era. Such a funky album. I kind of miss when people did a lot of those like really, really done up sets and everything, like just totally zany, like whatever. And I thought it was so cool, just like, and then yeah, coming into it and like this song really is like a lot like a ballad. It has a lot of space in interior space, you know, and. Yeah, so this was once again, like as far as I know, maybe the first of this that I had ever heard, and yeah, it was so cool. Like it took me by surprise. I knew once again in the first few moments of this song, just kind of like what space they were generating, and like I thought about myself a lot when I was listening to this song, because a lot of what you were just sharing about just like this kind of independence. And there's this kind of like longing. I mean, I'm just going to talk about my my life experience right now. I think that's the cool thing that music does. It connects to like your whole like heart stuff, you know. I've been spending a lot of time on my own recently, and there's this kind of longing that you get to when you get to the bottom of being alone, where you're not like, I don't want a person or a thing. I don't know what I want. You just have this like aimless want that everybody kind of has. And for me, and I think for a lot of people, you find out that it's like, well, you've been waiting for that time to just kind of sit there with yourself, you know? Sometimes like that longing and like you feel it is like, well, that's it. Like you've made it. And like in this song, like right in the beginning, it says like, if you really want to get out someplace, like, you know, the train's going to be there. But just like knowing that it's there helps you understand like, I'm choosing to remain at home right now. You know, like I'm choosing, like, I know that I have the freedom if it's there if I want it, but like right now what I'm trying to do is like feel a little bit more myself.
Totally.
And, like, and so cool. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and I love the lyric too, whenever like kind of the dark side of that, right, is when you are spending so much time alone and you are reflecting. He has this great line that says, when I realize the weight that's firmly on my shoulders, I just try and find the place I can take a walk on my blind side. And that, like, oh, like, still even reading it out loud, like, those lyrics just hit me, because you do a lot of soul searching. And I often find a lot of questions are answered in the silence, when I'm able to kind of sit down and just be with myself. And at the same time, there are also plenty of times where, when I do get quiet and sit down with myself, the only thing I want to do is escape, right? I just don't want to look at it, or I don't want to address it yet. I want to take a walk on my blind side. And ever since I heard that, again, when I was a sophomore in high school, was probably the first time I heard it. It resonated. And still, all these years later, 40 years later, I'm still like 30 years later, 40 years later. I'm not even going to do the math. It still like means the same thing to me, right? I still, in those quiet moments, find myself like at the same time being happy that I have them, and also to being resistant to wanting to address what I know is there when I'm being quiet, just reflecting.
Wow. I just think the way that interplays with the other song that you picked out for this week is cool, because I mean, those are like things that they do contradict, or they complicate one another, right? So you've got like something that I said about, spill the wine is like, it's this kind of, you have to kind of be fast and loose in order to get through some things. Sometimes when you dig your heels in, you're really making a lot of pain for yourself, and you really have to kind of let go and let things kind of happen. At the same time, like, that kind of letting go and letting things happen, you can really confuse it with like this fierce interiority that you're fighting for, where you don't want to see what's happening inside, but you do want to be alone or whatever, right? Like, that's another kind of digging in, where like, no, you have to, like, once again, like, you got to let go. But some of that means like doing some of the work and not playing it fast and loose. It means like staying still for a little bit and like seeing what happens. Such a cool, wow. Like, what an awesome like conversation space just based on these songs that like I never knew about before. So neat.
Same. And I felt the same way too, about like, to carry the thread all the way through with your songs too, how it takes you to a different listening place because you don't and I'm like air quoting understand. I feel like I do understand both songs, even though from a language perspective, I don't know what they're saying. And so I love that too, as like an all the way through thread, right? That you can be kind of like water and flowing at the party. You also need to reflect. And then like sort of the ultimate freedom is that you're so unattached to an outcome that you can just listen to beautiful music and trust that you understand what the song is trying to tell you without language, right? Without being able to comprehend the language. So I really love that too. And I think that, I think we've had a really deep episode here, Lee.
It's a lot of fun though. I love the way that like music will really just blow straight through a lot of stuff like that. It really find like the root of what you're feeling in that moment. Sometimes, I mean, you're just feeling really hyped up, and like that's really cool. It'll make you jump. But other times, like, really like slow it down or open.
Yeah, you want to reflect. Yeah, you want to have this kind of a conversation, and I love to have this conversation too about the party sound of Van Halen or whatever, right? Like, I don't have to be highbrow about it all the time. And when I get the opportunity to really dig in with somebody that wants to go there, it's such a gift for me. And I have so much gratitude, because I do love to get in. Like I say it in the show all the time. Like, I really do believe that music is sort of the great connector. And when you have a hard time maybe relating to people on other levels, for me, that's always been a way that I can sort of bridge that gap. And I feel like this episode is a great example of that. Like, what a cool conversation I got to have with you, Lee. So I'm so grateful that you joined me. Thank you so, so much for sharing what you're listening to this week. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Like, I was so stoked to be invited. I really, really love sharing music and talking about music. It's one of those things that's like, emotionally, it does something for me that a lot of other things can't do, even like deep conversations, like just kind of showing somebody like a weird album that really just like owns your heart for a little bit, or like makes you feel some kind of way. Like, that's something that I just love doing. So it was such a pleasure, and I just I really appreciate like conversation, the space that you made for all this. Like I think it was like really really awesome.
It was so cool. It was a gift for me too, to find two new artists that I am sure are going to be like part of my permanent rotation, and then to have an amazing conversation about all four songs. So thank you for that. And to my listeners, if you'd like to learn more about Lee, you can follow him on Instagram at Lee Deininger. And you can also view his art on Instagram at Backwards Eel. So that's at Lee, Lee _ DEININGER, and at backwards _ eel. That's at BACKWARDS _ EEL. And please be sure to follow, download, and share this show with everyone you know and all the people you'd like to know, because music is a great way to connect. Last but not least, to stay informed on all things Super Awesome Mix and What Are You Listening To, be sure to follow us on Instagram at Super Awesome Mix. Thanks for listening, and please join me again next week to find your new favorite song.